Hey everyone, Clay from Brooklyn, football with the fellas. It's all about Big Blue. It's been a minute since I've done a mock draft, so I think I want to do one. Yeah, I'm just going to hop right in and do a mock draft. And if you are as excited about the draft coming up as I am, please take a minute and grab that like button, share, subscribe, and then at the end of this, if you want to drop a comment, I'd appreciate that too. So shout out to PFF. I'm going to be using their technology, and as you see, I'm doing a 7 round mock at fast speed. I've turned off all these sliders and let's get right to it. So let's see. They picked Mendoza, Reese, Love, and Styles with 1 through 4, which I think is very realistic. And sadly, Sonny Styles is off the board. As you know, that's who I would take without a blink of an eye. So I'm a little disappointed, more than a little disappointed that he's not there. If he was there would be no conversation. But because he's not there, though, I'm going to take a look at what the trade options are. And the first team that they're willing to let us trade with is Washington. And the next is New Orleans. And I think I want to look at New Orleans because I really don't want to trade in the division. I don't think that's as realistic. So the first thing I do is say, well, what else will you give me? And I just asked for their 2nd round pick as well. There's a 67% chance it'll be accepted. If I ask for next year's first, that they think is too much. But what if I throw back a second? They still think that's too much. Okay. But if I ask for their 3rd round pick? So as you see here, I'm just adding the picks that I would be willing to accept. And they say that's too much. Well, what if I swap that with our 5th, our 4th? They don't like that either. What if next year, instead of a 1st round pick, I asked for a 2nd round pick and I gave them a 3rd round back? So as you see, I'm just trying to come up with different combinations of things that would make me happy to give up this 5th pick to move back to 8th. Right now, I don't seem to be making the algorithm happy. And I really don't want to do it just for the 2nd round pick this year. Maybe if I add a 3rd, 4th. Okay. Let's take a look at this. If I give them our 5th for their 8th overall pick, their 2nd round pick, and then I move up from the 4th round to the 3rd round next year, I've got about a 50-50 chance. Let's try that. Let's see if that works. And that didn't. And let's see what that would cost us. Okay, so they used that pick on Ruben Bain. And then David Bailey and Francis Mauigoa went after that. So I'm actually still kind of excited at the fact that Caleb Downs and Mansour Delane are both still on the board. I was worried that that's who would have gone off the board because those are my 2nd and 3rd favorite players in this draft after Sonny Styles. So I'm going to say, well, let me take one more look. Oh yeah, Cincinnati is at 10. So I theoretically could roll the dice that the next 2 picks are not both Downs and Delane because I really kind of want Downs or Delane. Let's see what happens if I offer them 6% chance. That's not going to get done. If I do that for their 1st next year in exchange for our 2nd, I've got a 44% chance of that working. I'm going to offer that. I think that's worth the roll. Okay, and that worked. So let's see what they do. And this is why I'm not a GM. And this is why I don't gamble. Because what happened? The exact 2 players that I wanted both went in those next 2 spots. So now they're both off the board. I was hoping that one of them would have fallen to 10 and that either Cincy or Kansas City would have wound up using the pick on somebody else, anybody else, a wide receiver perhaps. But no, they took Downs and Delane. And now I'm mad. So remember this on draft day. If we trade down once and a lot of people that we like are still on the board, that doesn't mean we should trade down again. Now, again, I've picked up some good things. So, in the long run, by 2027, maybe our team is better off as a result of all this. But right now, I'm annoyed. Certainly going to have to look at who's left. And there's still some very good players. I'm thinking that we would probably take Ola Ione because we really could use some help on the interior offensive line, and he looks like a beast. I know a lot of people want to take a wide receiver. I'm not taking a wide receiver. I'm not taking a skill position player in the 1st round. Certainly not. Monroe Freeling looks like a pretty solid tackle prospect, but we just re-signed the Luminor. And unless we're looking to kick him inside, I don't think that's necessary. So Jamar McCoy is the big question mark, right? He missed all of the 2025 season with an injury that he sustained like in January of 2025. So we haven't seen him play football all year. He looked great in 2024, but I'm not willing to roll the dice on a top 10 pick with a player who hasn't played a single down all year. And as much as I like Makai Lemon, and I really do like Makai Lemon, again, I'm not taking not wide receiver here. Spencer Fano is tempting. I think he's going to be a good pro at either tackle or guard, but I think he's going to be a good pro. I think Ola Ione has a chance to be a great pro at guard. So I think I'm going to go with that. I think that is the best player at a position that we really need that's still on the board that I have no health concerns with. So I'm taking him. And now we see everybody else that I wanted fly off the board. And now we're at 37, but let's take a quick look back at the last few picks. Emmanuel Pregnon was somebody I would have been happy to have had as well. Although now that we took Olayon, I don't need him as much. Colton Hood's a decent cornerback prospect. Caleb Banks has some injury concerns, but would be a great interior defensive line prospect. I love Max Iannakar. I had hoped he had dropped to 37, but he didn't. I didn't want him, at 10, but at 37, I would have been thrilled. Same with Caden McDonald. So yeah, most of the people Keldrick Falk, who I love, who I almost took a 10. In fact, maybe should have taken a 10. Most of them are gone. But Kristen Miller is still a very good player. I like Kristen Miller a lot. I like Lee Hunter, but I like Kristen Miller even better. I like Jacob Rodriguez. But if we look back at what we just did, we took an offensive lineman in the first round, which, wasn't my intention. So I'm definitely going defense in the second round. And I think I'm going to go with Kristen Miller. I think that that's the area that we need a lot of help in, that this guy looks like a major upgrade. I'm torn between him and Jacob Rodriguez, to be honest, and maybe even Keith Abney, because we could use a good corner as well. But we do have another pick at 42. So I'm going to take what I consider the sure thing interior defensive line upgrade. You know what? No, I'm not. I think the position that has the biggest drop off between who's on the board right now and who else is left on the board is inside linebacker. I love me some Jacob Rodriguez. He is a playmaker. I'm taking Jacob Rodriguez, and I'm going to hope that the defensive line can get help later. And of course, what happened? Christian Miller went next, and then Lee Hunter went. So both of the guys that I wanted in the interior defensive line are gone. It is what it is. I really like Jacob Rodriguez. There are other interior defensive linemen that I like. Now I'm torn between Chris Johnson. I didn't even see his name before. Chris Johnson and Keith Abney at cornerback, because that's another place that we could use some help. So far, this is what we've done. And the next pick after this one is 105, right? So this is a very important pick because it's going to be a long time before we draft again, unless we trade down. And here's a place where maybe that's what we should be looking at. Maybe we should be thinking, well, can I add a third round pick here? What's the next team that the algorithm thinks would want to trade with me? Is the Jets. So if I'm willing to trade back to 44, what will that get me? Not very much, and they don't even have a third round pick. So let's see if I went to, say, Indy at 47. If I'm willing to trade 42 to 47, will Indy give me their third round pick? No, it's not accepted. How far back do I have to go before I'm find a willing participant to give me a third round pick? If I trade back to 51, do I add 83? 40% chance. Let's take a shot at that. Let's see if that works. No, they're not accepting that. What if I throw in one of our 6? Oh, okay. Let's see if that works. Okay. So if I threw in pick 186, the first of our 3 6th-round picks, then they do that. And you know what? That's not terrible. Even though I'm sure, yes, of course, I was going to say, I'm sure Keith Abney will be gone, Chris Johnson will be gone. Yes, they both are gone. That's annoying. But I do add an extra third round pick, so that makes me feel good. Not an extra because we didn't have a third round pick. I add a third round pick. AJ Halsey is tempting. Keontae Scott is tempting, help on the defensive backfield. Um, Bryce Lance is tempting at wide receiver, but not yet. There's one of those big interior defensive linemen that I was talking about. Let's take a look at this young man. Good size, 6'4", 325, but his run stuffing rankings, although I don't like live and die by PFF, but those numbers just weren't jumping off the page at me. Darryl Jackson's the big body, much better run stuffer. 6'5", 337. I mean, I've watched a little bit of tape on a lot of these guys, so I can't say that I know him well, but that's a possibility. Do I think AJ Halsey is good enough prospect? AJ Halsey. I can't remember what his combine numbers were. Let's take a look. All right, so they say 6.25 will eventually be average starter. I don't worry about that much. He weighed in, it's measured in at 6 feet 215, shortish arms, but he ran a 4.5 240, which is borderline for a safety. So in addition to, again, the little bit of tape of his I've seen, I feel like he's a good player. I'm not sure he's pick number 51 overall. Keontae Scott misses a lot of tackles, but he's very willing to run support. He's one of those guys who's in the right place a lot, just doesn't always get the guy down. Kind of like Micah McFadden, although that's at linebacker, not cornerback. Keontae Scott's, as you see, his run defense grade is excellent, but his tackling grade isn't that good. 6 feet 195. Go back to this. You know what? I'm not doing that. I've watched enough Keontae Scott, read enough about Keontae Scott. I think I know enough about him to make a decision. He's a solid maybe. I'm just deciding if I need to go in a different direction. And I don't. You know what? I'm taking Keontae Scott. And I'm hoping that he, along with our Darius Washington and Drew Phillips, give us some depth and competition at slot corner, and that we wind up with someone that we feel confident in the passing downs, and then maybe one of the other ones comes in on the running downs, because likely running downs because they get more run support. Anthony Hill Jr. is still on the board at 83. That's interesting. So I did already take a Jacob Rodriguez, so that makes me feel like that would be a little redundant, but he's a good player, and I'm surprised he's still on the board here, and a good athlete. Let's see who else is here. Logan Jones at center is not a terrible option. Oh, Malachi Fields. No further questions. Malachi Fields is a big-bodied wide receiver who I think would be a very good complement opposite Malik Neighbors. And I'm surprised he's still on the board there. So, yeah, I'm taking him. Now what? Okay, let's do a quick review. We already have Ola Ione at guard. We have Jacob Rodriguez, Keontae Scott, and Malachi Fields. Ooh. Yes, Savion Harris, big brother. His numbers aren't great according to PFF. Again, not that I live and die by PFF, but these numbers are 6'8", 330. He's been described very often as one of those people that you can move anywhere along the interior defensive line, anywhere, like from nose tackle all the way out to defensive end. He's like Calais Campbell 2.0. And that makes me very happy. So yeah, let's go with Xavier Harris. I think he would give us a lot of support against the run. Um, and it's just one of those guys that the length alone keeps linemen away from his chest. And if he can just fill one B gap, that's fine with me. Just put him at 3I or 4 check and just hold line with one B gap while Dexter's abusing your center and one of your guards. That is to me a tight front three across in the interior with somebody like Xavier Harris as one of them, and maybe Roy Robertson Harris or Darius Alexander as the other would be a very good thing. Okay, now we'll pick 145 in the fifth round, and let's see any of these names pop for me. There's no one out here that's shouting, pick me, pick me. Ooh, Jeff Caldwell, very athletic, good sized, right? This is 6'5", 215, ran a very good 40 time. If I remember correctly, he was in the 4.4, just below 4.4 range. Put up some decent numbers at Cincinnati this year. Double dipping at wide receiver wasn't my plan, but that is not a terrible thing to wind up with. So I'm going to keep him as a solid maybe. Let me go back up here again. Yeah, really, there's nobody here that shouts out at me, gotta have this guy. If I hadn't already taken Xavier Harris, I might be tempted to take DeMonte Capehart, but he's not a must-have. Oh, DJ Campbell. DJ Campbell is a solid guard. You see, he's rated fairly well in both run and pass blocking, 6'3", 321. Solid guard option. I mean, obviously, I already took Ola Ione, so I don't need a guard necessarily, but good player. You know what? I'm going to double dip a wide receiver. I'm taking Jeff Caldwell. I like Jeff Caldwell. And let's see what now we've got. Our last two picks are the back-to-back picks in the late sixth, in the sixth round. And now we're just going to look for the best players that are still left. Oh, Zane Durant is still left and Cole Wisniewski is still left. That's not a terrible combination right there. Bishop Fitzgerald is still left. Lorenzo Styles is left. Wrong Styles, but good player. Oh, Tyron Montgomery. I'm not taking 3 wide receivers, but that's not a bad option to have either. Let's see. Nobody here shouts at me. So let's go back to I'm going to take Zane Durant. I think that would he's a little undersized. He's going to give us some pass rush help from the interior, but not very much against the run. But I think in an odd front as a basically defensive end, I think that's someone that we could find some snaps for and get some production out of. And at pick 192, I think that's as good as you can hope for. And yeah, I guess I'm down to which of these two safeties do I want. I haven't taken the safety yet, and I think you see the run support in Cole Wisniewski's rate really makes me happy. 6'4", 220. I'm taking it. Again, these are people who I've watched some film on, not a lot. So I can't say to you I'm a Cole Wisniewski expert, but I like what I'm seeing and reading about him, and I like his size, and we need a safety. Okay, so this is the result. As you see, I traded down twice from 5 to 8 and then from 8 to 10. And what do I get back? I got pick number 42. I got a third rounder next year in the first trade with the Saints. I got a first rounder next year in the trade with Cincinnati. So I'm liking how we look for next year. We'll have an extra first and an extra third, but no second. And then Ola Ione, Jacob Rodriguez, I traded again. to add a third round pick. Got Keontae Scott, Malachi Fields, Xavier Harris, Jeff Caldwell, Zane Durant, and Cole Wisniewski. I'm very pleased with this. They even were fairly pleased with it. They gave me a B minus. Not that I care what they gave me that much, but it's nice to know. So this is what I just did. Please take a look at that. I'd love to hear what you think about these picks. So drop a comment, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Again, Clay from Brooklyn, football with the fellas, all about Big Blue, and I'm out.